Hi, what I wanted to do in this video is just kick off a series of tutorial videos talking about reading music. Now, if you've been playing guitar for a while, chances are you've come across tablature. You know, tablature is something that looks like this. Okay, so you've got something there that shows you how to play notes on the guitar. So if you got that, why would you want to learn music? Is it not a bit old-fashioned, a bit antiquated? Well, admittedly, music notation's been around a lot longer than tablature has, but tablature I don't think is going to replace it, because there's still things you can convey in normal music notation that you can't convey through tablature. And what I want to do in this little series of tutorials is just give you basic grounding in how to read music and just show you what the significance of the dots and the lines and the different symbols that you come across, what they mean. The aim isn't to get you to be some super fast sight reader. You can just look at a piece of written music and immediately play it on the instrument. That's not what it's about. It's just about being able to, if you see something written down, being able to make sense of it, at your own pace. And also importantly, if you have something that you want to capture, to pass to somebody else, sometimes actually writing it down in music notation is the best way to share ideas, or if you have an idea, to be able to capture it for future reference. Okay, so where we're going to start? Well, let's start by looking at what's called the stave. Okay, so this is a stave, what's called a treble clef. It's the S-shaped thing at the end. We'll talk about clefs in a little bit. For now, let's just talk about the lines. It's actually the lines and the spaces in between them that we use where we can place dots to represent notes. The lower lines and spaces represent lower notes. The higher lines and spaces represent higher notes. Let's start by looking at the lines. So the lower one there represents an E, then going upwards G, B, D and F. And the trick people traditionally have used for remembering the naming scheme for the lines is that every good boy deserves favour, or something else beginning with F. I'll let you select your own choice there. As I said, the spaces in between the lines also represent notes. This one's quite easy to remember, just F-A-C-E, face, going upwards. So if we look at the stave with the treble clef there, these are the notes that are represented by the lines and the spaces in between them. And the lines and the spaces between them represent notes. So if I wanted to show, for argument's sake, a C note, the C is that second space down, third space up. So if we place a note in that space, the space represented by C, that basically is telling us that we're playing a C note. Now that's with what's called a treble clef. The clef basically indicates the general sort of range of notes that you're working with. Most music that you see written for guitar will be written on the treble clef. Some other clefs, the one that you'll probably see most frequently is what's called the bass clef. And it looks like this. Now, the bass clef tells us that we're working with some lower notes. If you ever see piano music, you'll generally see that the left hand's written using the bass clef, because that's where you would be playing the lower notes, and the right hand will be written with the treble clef, because those are the higher notes. But in like rock music, if you see a bass part written, generally it will be using the bass clef because it indicates a lower pitch of note. So if we have a look at that with the lines and the spaces, as you can see, using the lines to indicate the notes. Going upwards, we have G, B, D, F, and A. It's the same principle as with the treble clef. That we place a dot on the line. The line represents a note, so that tells us which note we're playing. And spaces A, C, E, and G. Okay, now you might think that's maybe a little bit restrictive, because you've only got 5 lines, 4 spaces. That's only giving you 9 note names. What you can do is the stave does actually extend above and below those core 5 lines. Let's have a look at the treble clef now with some additional notes above and below the lines. Okay, so what we can do is, if we need to play a note that's outside the range of the stave, what we can do is we can draw some additional lines above it or below it as we need, whatever we need to do, and put the note on it. So in this case, if we wanted to play a C that was above the range of the normal stave, we'd write it like this. Those lines, we just add them as we need them to take us up as far as the note that we want to add. Now, you might have spotted that the lines and spaces that we've talked about so far will give us notes that don't have accents in the names. But how do we deal with things where we want to show some things like a sharp or a flat? Okay, this is a treble clef stave showing C natural. Now, if we wanted to make that into C sharp, all we do is we put a little sharp sign in front of the note. Likewise, if we want to make that into a C flat, we just put a flat sign in front. Now, you might be thinking that the idea of putting sharps and flats in front of note names, that's all well and good, but what happens if you're playing in a key where normally there's a lot of accented note names? Well, we can get around that by what's called a key signature. Now, what a key signature does is sort of like pre-annotates the various lines and spaces on the stave to say that any note that's played on that line is automatically sharp or flat. So let's take a look at the key signature for G major. Now, in the key of G major, the notes that we've got are G, A, B, C, D, E and F sharp. Now, if we're playing in that key, it's going to get a bit annoying if every time we want to write F sharp, we'll have to put a sharp sign in front of the note. So what the key signature allows us to do is to say, well, this line here that represents F, it's telling us that any F that we're playing is going to be an F sharp. So this note here, for all it doesn't have a sharp sign in front of it, means F sharp. Now, for all the key signature only puts the sharp sign on, say the one line for the F there, it applies to any line or space that represents that note. So the space down the bottom there that also represents an F, that would be an F sharp as well. And what happens if you need to play an unaccented note name when the key signature has sort of annotated that line as being sharp? Well, there's another symbol that you can use. It's called the natural symbol. So if we're playing in the key of G major, but we wanted to slip in an F natural, we could write it like this. Now, that sign means natural. It looks a little bit like a sharp sign, but don't get the two confused, because they do have two different meanings. So with your key signature, it's like pre-annotates a line. It could be using sharps, or it could be using flats. There's another tutorial on here where I'm talking about the circle of fifths and keys and so on. I'll put a link to that in the info section on YouTube if you want to have a look. It tells you a little bit more about key signatures and so on in there. Okay, so there we've seen a way of representing the pitch of a note by placing a dot on a particular line on the stave. Now, in those examples, we're just using a fairly simple dot symbology to indicate the note. The symbology used in music, though, it's a lot richer. Different types of note symbol depending on the length of the note, how long it's played for. And also there's some corresponding symbols for rests, for times where we're not playing notes and we need to indicate how long the gap is. And what we're going to do in the next video in this series is look at the rhythm side of things in a bit more detail. So hopefully I will see you in that video very soon.